Now, a WFSB Plus original. This is the Capitol Rundown.
Welcome to the Capitol Rundown. I'm Kara Sundlin. We bring you politics from both sides of the aisle with our Connecticut insiders, Themis Klarides, former Republican House leader, and Jimmy Tickey, a Democratic strategist, who are joining me on Zoom today because, Jimmy, I know you're out in California for a DNC event, and Themis, you're also working on a gaming commission out of state. So the news continues, though, so thank you for joining me, and I hope you both can hear me okay.
Yeah.
Got it. All right. So let's begin with the news about the Senate in Washington voting down health care subsidies. This has been in the news for some time. Yesterday, we reported that Governor Lamont says our state's going to chip in so that people don't have to have these extreme increases. I guess the question for taxpayers is, can we do that? Can we afford to do that? What happens next? Jimmy, let's start with you.
Yes, well, first, this was a good move by the governor. The state legislature had given him this sort of power, this emergency power to do this several weeks ago in the legislative session. So this is all about having the wherewithal for the state to be able to meet the needs of people today in the event that the federal Trump administration doesn't. And as many have been watching, people were getting their healthcare premium bills. They were seeing these increase. And this is why we had a federal government shutdown for over 40 days, because there was a disagreement about extending these federal tax subsidies so that people's healthcare bills would not double or triple. And sadly, no agreement came to be. And in a vote that was held in the United States Senate, there was not enough Republicans to support this measure. Democrats wanted to continue these healthcare subsidies to ensure that we do not see these sorts of crazy premium increases that families and individuals are facing in Connecticut. And so the governor does have the wherewithal to put some money behind this. It will not be for everyone, but it will be targeted, and it is $70 million investment to ensure that people's bills will not increase if they are on the Affordable Care Act in Connecticut, which we call Access Health CT.
Okay. So, Themis, the Republicans had an alternative plan. Can you talk to me about that, this healthcare savings account, and what do we think about the federal government doing this?
Well, herein lies the problem, right? The Democrats and the Republicans feel very differently about making sure that people have good and safe health care. You know, this notion that Republicans don't want people to have health care is just utter nonsense. They just believe in doing it in a more responsible way. Now, we knew that when COVID hit, that's when we talk about these enhanced tax credits. So people were getting sick, as we all know, during COVID, and we wanted to make sure as many people were covered as possible, had health care coverage. So these enhanced tax credits were put forth. And this is what the whole argument now is. And this is why generally the budget came to a halt and government stopped, because the Democrats believe we should just keep giving people money to help pay their health care costs. And the Republicans believe that we should empower people to do it on their own and give them health savings accounts and put money into those accounts and then help them pay for their health care. Both sides believe in helping people, but it is about just handing money over that the Republicans have an issue with. But regardless, I mean, the Democrats feel one way, the Republicans feel another way. And last night, neither one of them could come to a conclusion and get enough votes to move it forward. So I do agree the governor did the right thing with taking $70 million out of the $500 million that the legislature approved a few weeks ago in session for situations like this. Because remember, this budget situation that happened a month ago, this could easily happen again the end of January and at another time. Because we mean the federal government, does not do budgets in a way that you do in your home. You have to figure out how much money you have, how much money you're spending, and move forward. They do these things called continuing resolutions, which only fix things for a couple months at a time. And that was the fear of it happening again and people being without health care.
So just to be clear, members of Congress also are affected, or people who work for congressional officers are affected because many of them might be on this health care plan. Is that correct? Jimmy?
Well, anyone who is on these exchanges would be impacted. Anyone who is on a healthcare exchange, as many are, many small businesses, individuals, families, if they are on any sort of affordable healthcare exchange, they will be impacted. In Connecticut, we call it Access Health CT. In every state, it might have a different name, but basically the underpinnings of our healthcare system is now that Affordable Care Act that some call Obamacare. And so there were subsidies attached to that, which made sure that people's premiums were, I don't want to say low because healthcare is still such an expensive bill for people, but they were more affordable than what they will be as we head into 2026. People should know what their premiums now will be because letters had to be sent out in the last several weeks, and many have already paid that bill as we head into January 2026, where families and individuals are going to see an increase in the Affordable Care Act and the premiums that they're paying, and that is because of these tax subsidies that were not extended by the federal government. So it's most unfortunate. Democrats voted to support the healthcare extensions to keep bills lower. But again, Connecticut at least made the move now to invest $70 million through an emergency fund for those that meet the threshold so that their bills won't double or triple. It's a small start. States are not going to be able to backfill all of the cuts that we're seeing from the federal government. It's just not possible in many scenarios because we rely on the federal government for so many streams of funding. And so when you see cuts like this, it really does show just how much the state and federal governments are really interconnected.
So let's move on.
Well, interesting, Kara, also, though, I mean, of the $70 million, there's $295 million that Connecticut people are losing in regards to that. But the one thing that the governor could not answer, and I think it's a very important question, is, as Jimmy mentioned, November 1st is when the enrollment period started to start your insurance for January 1st. And many people have already paid and like re-enrolled or enrolled for the first time for these, and they couldn't answer the question, the people that have paid the premiums already, will they be reimbursed? The other interesting part is, compared to last year at this time and the amount of people that were enrolled, there weren't that many fewer this year than last year, which is a very interesting number.
Interesting. Okay. So let's talk about consumer confidence in general. We watched the stock market, at least the Dow hit a record yesterday as interest rates had been cut. An AI bubble was being burst. And, there's curious can we afford to do this? I know we've got this rainy day fund, but let's talk about consumer confidence and how that's affecting the economy, specifically in Connecticut. Jimmy, what's your take, your forecast as we move into 2026?
Well, generally and unfortunately, consumer confidence is down. I mean, people are feeling very pessimistic about the economy, the direction of the economy, with the rising price of goods, with inflation continuing to take hold. This federal administration talked a lot about affordability, but we have not really seen the policies that have come forth to help with inflation. In fact, through the president's tariff plan, we've only seen large companies, of course, pass those increased prices on to consumers. And so there is a real pessimism about the economy, and consumer confidence is pretty somber. You see these reports and it's not great. In Connecticut, we do try to outpace the rest of the country in our optimism, in our strong economy that we do have in the state. But generally, people are still paying the same prices as we are around the country with grocery bills and fruits and vegetables. And so it really is difficult for people who are living paycheck to paycheck. The Fed's move yesterday to decrease the interest rate is helpful for those that might be looking to make a large purchase, like a home or a very large investment in their home. But for those that are still living paycheck to paycheck, that still is a very far off thought if they can even afford their rent month to month.
Okay. And what do you think, Themis? Do you think we're heading in the right direction?
Well, the Fed's move to bring down the inflation rate, the interest rate, is because of what's going on with consumer confidence, right? They usually look at indicators when they make these decisions. And this is the third time in 2025 that the interest rate has gone down. Now, of course, the president is arguing with the Fed chairman, Jerome Powell, and thinking he should be lowering it even more because it makes borrowing money less expensive. But that's a brawl, I think, that will continue with them. But when they look at these economic indicators that we find, that one of the main things that inflation went from 2.3% to 3% in April to 3% in September. And that is what really they're looking at as bringing consumer confidence down lower. The economy is growing, but not fast enough. right? So you look at numbers sometimes and they're a little bit misleading. You can say, oh, the economy is growing, right? But not fast enough to catch up with, with pay, with things like that. The job market, it's slowed down. Unemployment has been slowly increasing. So this is one of those situations where you hear them say they're cautious. It's not time to pull the panic button, but the economy is not moving in the right direction, and it's not moving in the right direction quickly enough.
Mm-hmm. So as we look at the economy and right, depending on where you are and how you're going to be affected by this, is there a state of hiring here in Connecticut compared to other states? The president has said that the affordability is a hoax. I know we're an expensive state. Themis, I'll start with you. Is affordability a hoax, or are we really concerned about the prices of goods, especially here in Connecticut?
Of course it's not a hoax. I mean, that doesn't even make sense. I mean, people know what they can afford. They know inflation is going up. They know they're not making as much money, to catch up for that. Or if they are, they're just breaking even. We talk about this year, Cyber Monday and Black Friday and the big shopping days of the year. And although it is increased 9.1% over last year at this time. So think about that. We have spent 9.1% more than we spent last year during this Thanksgiving shopping holiday season. People are buying less goods, so they're focusing more on bigger goods, and they're also focusing more on value places like Walmart and places that can give them good deals. The other interesting thing that I found was that they're doing more buy now, pay later, and they're putting more on their credit card. So that's when we talk about, when you look at these statistics and they're a little bit misleading. Yeah, you would think 9.1%, we're spending more, though that's great, but people are not really paying for it all right now. And when you look at the retail growth, that's another indicator that's very important for economists because it has slowed. And they're saying that of the top 10% wage earners in this country, they are buying 50% of the goods. The bottom 80% are kind of staying even keel. They're focusing on the value places, the Walmarts, the Targets. They said those businesses are doing good. What they call luxury, affordable luxury, like Coach and Ralph Lauren, those places are doing better if you're going to spend a little more money, but other businesses are being hurt.
Wow. Okay. Jimmy, anything on that before we move on to our housing bill?
Yes, well, of course, this president ran on affordability, and now that they haven't really addressed it and they haven't addressed inflation, they want to turn attention or distract elsewhere. And so, the fact that the president calls it a hoax, of course, is not true. This is something that people feel every single day, as I think Themis points out very well, is that people are spending more money, but don't let that mislead you to think things are going well. People are spending more for smaller products. We've all been in the grocery store, and the packages seem to get smaller and smaller for less items, but spending more. And I think working people and a lot of families across Connecticut and the country, they just feel squeezed by rising prices, stagnant wages, a federal administration that is not delivering on helping with inflation or affordability. And people are in a difficult time as we enter this holiday season, and many living paycheck to paycheck. And the idea about buy now and pay later also then becomes a further debt that people need to pay back.
So we're going to move on to the housing bill. That's been something we've talked about on the show for months now, and it's finally passed. Explain this of how it's going to affect your town in Connecticut. Like people living in Connecticut, they've been hearing a lot about this. What will this mean now, Themis?
I personally don't see the big difference between this bill that was passed and the governor signed in the past. I mean, he just signed it, but the legislature passed it 2 weeks ago versus the bill that was passed in the spring that the governor vetoed. I think you're hearing the positive things of it are it's going to make things more affordable because it's an affordable housing bill. It can even jumpstart the economy. It will affect and help homelessness. I mean, these are big, big issues that will not be fixed by this particular bill. And our argument from the beginning has been that you have to incent people to do things in their own. Every town is different in Connecticut. Every city is different in Connecticut. And we are a very unique state because we're the third smallest state in the country, but we have very, very diverse cities and towns. I mean, you look at the city of Hartford, and the mayor just put in a new policy. He took 18 properties that have basically been deserted. They've been, some of them 20 to 30 years. He's selling them to developers for $1. And he's saying we need to have a mortgage of between $1,500 and $1,800 a month. And there's $4 million in the state of Connecticut and the city of Hartford that are going towards those developers. The problem with cities like Hartford are that they have a very low home ownership rate. Hartford has actually the lowest in the state at 23%. And that's why, therefore, they can't get enough taxes and it becomes a difficult city to live in. I think what the mayor, seriously.
Yeah, Themis, just pause for a second. I think you froze a little bit, but we heard you till just now. Jimmy, if you want to pick up from there, Themis doesn't seem too impressed with this housing bill.
Right. No, that is correct. And, I think housing is a difficult thing because what you've often seen in development is that people don't want things in their own town, NIMBYism as it's often called. But I think what happened with this bill was there was a bill that, of course, many Democrats supported. It was vetoed by the governor. They then went back to the drawing board. They picked up the pieces from the former bill that the governor did support. They worked with local leaders as they had the first time around. And the bill is similar to the initial bill, but it is different in that we do not direct or even come close to directing towns to set aside any certain affordable housing. That was all removed from the bill. The bill is aspirational. It allows towns to really think about how you are developing your town, to add more to the supply, because obviously with supply and demand, if we are adding more housing, mixed use housing, mid-level housing, workforce housing, so that our firefighters, our teachers, our police could be in a place, perhaps even in the town that they serve, that is aspirational. And that is something that we should be able to have, that people have a good, safe place to live with their family. And so doing more with housing around the state of Connecticut to add more affordable housing, add more workforce housing so that there's places for people to live. If seniors want to maybe downsize but still want to be in their town, if young people would like to move out of their parents' house and have their own place, we see just how expensive homes ownership and then also rental apartments are. And so this would allow putting us down a path to lower those costs and to add more housing. We need to do it. We need more housing in the state. So it was a good measure for the governor to sign the bill this time around. And I will say local leaders were at the table, including Republicans, who did say that this allows them to now kind of formulate plans and to see how they are developing their towns. How many factories do we have that just sit there idle, that are empty, brown fields, where we could really envision a future where we've got mixed use development, maybe in our downtowns or in old factory buildings, and transform that into housing.
Okay, so we'll see what the future brings. Themis, I know we have you back now. Wi-Fi can be difficult, but I know you wanted to finish your thought on the housing bill and how this could impact real people in Connecticut.
I heard Jimmy give an example of, old factories turned into residents. That would be great if that works for the town. And I know we've seen towns do that kind of thing. Part of the problem with this bill that is now law is it gives power to the Council of Government. So each one of us lives in a town or city, and we have a mayor or first selectman that runs that town or city, but then there's a regional group that people work together with, the towns work together with, but they can't overtake the will of the town. And unfortunately, this is going to give those regional groups some control over what our towns that we choose to live in are doing. The other problem is it is allowing those commercial areas to be developed and turned into residential much easier than they did before. Now, I agree that if that's what the town wants, if the developer's there to put in housing, we should be able to work together to make that happen. But it should be up to the town to make those decisions on what the character of their town is, what the people that live there want, while at the same time trying to decide how we're going to increase our housing stock.
All right. Well, we will leave it there. Both of you, I appreciate you joining from opposite sides of the nation. So thank you for being with us on the Capitol Rundown. Everyone at home, also thank you for joining us. You can always watch the Capitol Rundown live on Fridays at 2 p.m. streaming, but you can go back and binge all the episodes because they're right there streaming for free on WFSB Plus and our YouTube channel and on WFSB.com. Just click on local news. Themis, Jimmy, we'll see you next week. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.